Welcome to all the new people. Welcome to all the familiar faces. It's really nice to see you. I'm going to share my screen, but I'm going to tell you what we're going to do today. This is going to be short and effective. So it's going to be only half an hour long. I'm going to start by showing you an example, and please stick around for the questions. I'm going to ask you some questions to determine where you are, how you feel. But before I do that, if you can just put your hands up, who are people today in this group who is here for the training? So I would assume there's going to be two types of people here. There's going to be people who wants to do training, who wants to learn, and then there's going to be people, maybe an HR or an HR department or owner who wants to look at the training for their junior leaders. So for now, just put up all the hands with the people who's here to actually learn. And the reason why I'm asking you that is because the questions that I'm going to ask you is focused on you. I want you to score yourself. So if I go through this, let me see. Oh, okay, there's a lot of people here that's here for the training for themselves. So the other people, like the HR people who's here to see what the training looks like for their people, please also stick around. You will see why this is important. But I just wanted to have a glimpse to like who I'm going to speak to, who I'm going to talk to. All right, so let's get started. I'm going to share my screen. If we've got, as a matter of fact, I'm going to switch off my camera because we've had scrolling problems with internet connectivity and things like that. But Charlene will tell me if something gets stuck or if something doesn't move. And also, in the meantime, prepare your questions for me in the chat group. I'm going to try and finish a few minutes before the time so that we can address all your most important questions. All right, so I'm going to share my screen with you. Right, let me just start the slideshow from the beginning. There we go. Okay, so Charlene, you can just stop me if it looks like anything got stuck. So even though we usually do an introduction to junior, middle, and senior management training, today we will focus on junior management training and why it is very important. So for you that know me, my name is Cecilia Denton. I'm an industrial psychologist. I'm the owner of PTES Consulting. We do psychometric assessment. And in today's presentation is the introduction to junior management training. And thank you to the HR Talk that always arranges these webinars for us and invites all of you so that you know about this. So let's move on. So usually I would start talking about examples of poor leadership. Now today, because these leadership examples focuses on executive leaders, these are already very senior managers that knows how things work and still take chances and doesn't fill the positions very well. But I just want to quickly touch on it. In the past, we've spoken about Kodak, who's fallen off the map because of their resistance to change. You will remember I've referred previously to BP Oil, who prioritized cost and speed over safety with catastrophic consequences. That's why I've got a picture of Titanic on here, really because the Titanic did exactly the same thing. And if you look at disasters in history, this is what it ends up looking like. So BP Oil had this disaster. There's just a few photos of how bad it was. And it's an example of poor judgment. It's an example of greed and haste and just not thinking the way that you should. And then there is Enron. I always cover Enron as well. This was the US energy company that collapsed in 2001 due to massive accounting fraud. And these are the two culprits. You would think that these people are older, been around the block, they've got the skills by now, but these two, this is what their pictures look like. And their psychological profiles, although not formally diagnosed, but it looked like it tended towards narcissism, a lot of ambition, but lack of empathy and things like that. And then always I refer to Uber. So for those of you who don't know, in the early years, Uber, under the management of Travis Kalanick, it was recognized by aggressive and unstructured leadership, fostered a toxic culture with legal issues. And I was actually quite surprised when I read about this. But if you also look at his profile, there's quite a bit of autocratic leadership style. There's a little bit of a narcissism that we pick up there, quite a driven and an energetic personality profile. So in the beginning, it actually worked quite well, very competitive, assertive. But when it tips over into that very driven, lack of empathy type of style where others are not considered, then it just doesn't turn out well. But today, I want to talk about Zhang Yiming. That's how I would imagine we pronounce his name. So this is a really interesting example of a very good young leader. So he is the founder of ByteDance, or TikTok, and how he started in his early career. So he started late 20s. So he was incredibly young. This is an amazing example. So Zhang Yiming demonstrates that leadership is not determined by age, but by vision, initiative, and the ability to bring people together around a common purpose. This is just a very intelligent, very broad thinking person. So by combining innovative thinking, calculated risk taking, and look at the word that I wrote there, calculated risk taking, data-driven decision making, and a commitment to develop talented teams, he built ByteDance from a startup to one of the world's leading technology companies. His leadership illustrates how curiosity, resilience, and empowering others can enable young leaders to achieve extraordinary results. This is just an incredible example. But let's look at what is ByteDance. Who am I talking about here? I literally had to research it as well, because I'm not so clued up with all the new things. But his profile tickled me because it's really unique. So ByteDance is the Chinese technology company that owns TikTok. All of you must know TikTok or have heard of it. So here's how the relationship works. ByteDance is the parent company founded in 2012 by Zhang Yiming in Beijing, China. TikTok is one of ByteDance's products. It's the international version of a short-form video platform. In China, ByteDance operates a similar app called, I would imagine you pronounce it, Douyin, which is separate from TikTok, even though they look very similar. So what does ByteDance do? ByteDance is an artificial intelligence or AI company and technology company that develops apps using algorithms to recommend content that users are most likely to enjoy. So why did I choose him for being a very good, young, inspirational leader? So this is just a few of the reasons. There are many more, but let's just look at the main reasons. And I am absolutely amazed if I look at his age. So firstly, let's just look at the top 5. He identified an opportunity others missed. So rather than following existing trends, Zhang recognized that people were overwhelmed by the amount of online content available. He believed artificial intelligence could personalize information for each user, leading the creation of ByteDance's recommendation technology. So the leadership lesson here, good leaders identify problems and create innovative solutions. Innovation and entrepreneurial creativity in South Africa is a massive, massive problem. We have a massive lack of it. And you need to start thinking of your own creativity, open your own mind. And one of the biggest blocks we have in South Africa is the group dependence that we have. So it's a belief that others must pay us, others must lead us, and others must make decisions for us. Entertain this thought. You may even think that you're self-sufficient or that you're independent and you're strong, but ask yourself some questions. I'm going to get to the question part at the end. This is why I included the question part. So just stick around. But I want to leave this thought with you. How independent and how innovative are you really? Let's look at the second one. He took calculated risks, and I want to reiterate and emphasize calculated risks. So can you see that risk taking does not have to be impulsive shooting from the hip? It can be calculated. So at just 29 years old, Zhang left a secure job to start ByteDance in 2012. Starting a technology company in a highly competitive market required confidence, resilience, and a willingness to accept uncertainty. There's another key word, resilience. Resilience is another thing that we do not have, and resilience is the ability to bounce back from setbacks, and a million setbacks, and a lot of pressure, and a lot of disappointment, and a lot of rejection. That is what resilience is. You have to think about your own resilience. It's another thing that we really don't have. Uncertainty is a thing that we've always had, and I wouldn't describe this as a specific thing that anyone has. It is something that a lot of us can struggle with, even if you are a senior manager or an executive. So uncertainty is a thing that you also need to learn to entertain, because uncertainty is a very important part of being a young leader and then growing into a more senior and executive leader. It's one of the most important factors. Even if you look at a person like Elon Musk, he is very comfortable dealing with a massive amount of uncertainty. And it's still for us mere mortals roaming this planet, it's still a very difficult thing to deal with. So don't judge yourself if that makes you anxious. It's fine, but you can learn to entertain it and deal with it the best you can. So, but let's just look at the leadership lesson here. Effective leaders are willing to step out of their comfort zone and believe in an opportunity. But you can also take calculated risks. You don't have to just jump into the deep end. Then he built high-performing teams. Although he was highly technical himself, Zhang recognized that success depended on attracting talented people. He's so young. How did the guy know this? He focused on hiring individuals who were smarter than himself in their respective fields and created an environment where ideas were valued regardless of hierarchy. At this point, when I appoint, I just look at someone who's got a great attitude and who will at least take proactive decision and use their discretion. This guy looked at innovation and people that are smart and that can be left totally alone. So the leadership lesson here, strong leaders surround themselves with capable people and empower them to contribute. So now let's take it back to, imagine you work with someone who's got low resilience, someone who is dependent, someone who's group dependent. So I just want to plant that seed in your head. Where are you? How independent are you? How group dependent are you? How resilient are you? And then 4, he encouraged innovation. Employees at ByteDance were encouraged to experiment, test ideas, and learn from failures. This culture allowed the company to innovate rapidly and develop products such as TikTok that gained worldwide popularity. We know that's a success. I don't know much, but I hear from other people. I don't even have a TikTok account. I don't care much for that, but I hear and I can see what's going on around me. So the leadership lesson is innovation thrives when leaders encourage learning and calculated experimentation. When we do assessment, and we do a lot of that on a daily basis, we assess for that ability to manage yourself, that ability to direct yourself, the ability to be resilient and bounce back from rejection and a disappointment. That's the word I was looking for. That ability to persevere. It's a big, big, big thing. Then, number 5, he made decisions using data. Can you see once again how this component links to taking calculated risks? He used data. He didn't go on what he was feeling or thought that would work well. He worked with data. So do your homework, work on data, do research, the research is so available everywhere. You can just jump on the internet right now and do your own research. So rather than relying solely on intuition, Zhang promoted evidence-based decision-making. ByteDance became known for testing ideas, measuring results, and continuously improving products based on user behavior. Can you see that's where it can be calculated? It doesn't have to be uncertain or unclear. Although your environment that you are entering into may be uncertain and that may be unclear. The leadership lesson here, effective leaders balance creativity with objective information when making decisions. You know what else I said about him? He is very humble. He's humble and he's patient, and I love that about him. So the reason why we want to develop junior leadership is, and I'm going to start with the questions just now, but I just want to quickly go through why we develop junior leaders. So firstly, you want to build foundational leadership skills, equipping them with a basic management, communication, and problem-solving abilities needed to lead teams effectively. So usually when we assess whether someone is ready for that next level, and you could have an operational person, you want to prepare them for junior leadership. You could have a junior leader preparing them for middle management leadership, and you can have a middle management leader preparing them for senior management, and so on. That's how it will grow. So you will also find that the higher on that hierarchy you go, the more you will be faced with that uncertainty where you have to apply your discretion. So that's what we assess for. So when I talk about that discretion, that is where the willingness to stick out your head, to the willingness to accept and acknowledge mistakes, failure, putting your ego aside and apply your discretion and make decisions independently, free from that group consensus. So remember, having group input and group consensus is a good thing because you do want to have that consultative leadership style. It is different from being a dependent and being highly group dependent. That is an inherent thing. That is I'm reliant on other people thing. It's different from having a consultative management style. So I hope you can see the difference. But anyway, you want to make sure that that person that was very effective on operational level, are they ready to take on that discretionary decision making, being able to apply their own decision making. So you want to make them ready. That's why we call it building foundational leadership skills. You want to start slowly. Someone is not going to go from an operational hands-on position and jump into a junior or a middle management leadership style just net easily. You need to prepare them. And you as the junior potential leader need to make the change in your head. Then enhancing decision-making capabilities, preparing them to make informed, timely, and responsible decisions. Then ensuring alignment with organizational goals. Now you're not just going to be thinking about yourself and what you're doing. You're going to link your own thinking to the company strategy, the culture, and expectations earlier in their career. Stop thinking about your own needs. Stop thinking about your own competitive drive. Now start including the organizational goals. Make a mind shift change here. Then increasing engagement and retention. Showing investment in their growth fosters loyalty and motivation. So this is what you want to do with your staff member, increasing engagement and retention. You don't want to micromanage them, but you also don't want to leave them totally alone. Then creating a talent pipeline, developing future leaders to fill middle and senior management positions, ensuring long-term organizational continuity. You do want to tap into the existing potential that you have. Also make sure that the person wants to go that route. Often people will just say yes to promotional opportunities because there's a bigger salary involved, but make sure that you use them where they are optimal and that is really what they want to do. So have very open discussions. You don't also want to change a very an excellent performer on a specific level and just move them because you think they will do well there. Have very open discussions also about the change in responsibility and the change in decision making. Then improving team performance. Trained junior managers can guide their teams more effectively, boosting productivity and morale. So they really must make that change, that shift from the operational level that they were on to a more leading discretionary type of style. All right, I am going to now share the questions that I have for you. So make ready for the questions. Okay, let me just open the right document. Okay, can you see this Word document before you? Charlene, you can just tell me if you can see it. It will say pre-assessment. This is before training.
Yes, we can see it, Celia.
Okay, fantastic. So I'm going to ask you 5 questions on 5 important things. So you can score yourself. You don't have to tell me anything. You can score yourself. And you can write it down or you can just score in your head. It doesn't matter. So the first one is a question around your own self-awareness. So on a scale from 1 to 5, 1 being very low, 5 being very confident. How confident are you in your own leadership ability? So you as a potential young junior leader, and be very honest with yourself. There's no one here that's going to see your answers. How confident are you in your own leadership ability? So do you feel comfortable making decisions on behalf of a team? Yes or no? So firstly, score yourself. And then secondly, how comfortable are you making a decision on behalf of your team? And then thirdly, how do you usually handle conflict amongst team members? Are you someone who would avoid it? Are you someone who's going to take charge, seek a compromise, or let others handle it? So you can choose out of your 3, let me say 4 options. Okay, so that's the first one on self-awareness. Right. Okay, and if you've got any questions, you can put it in the chat box along, but this is just about your own self-awareness. Then let's look at the second cluster. That is communication. How comfortable are you with giving feedback to colleagues? That's your first question. And your options are, I'm very comfortable, I'm somewhat comfortable, I'm not comfortable at all. All right, so I must tell you, if I had to look at myself giving feedback to colleagues, I'm fairly comfortable, but often I think giving the feedback is a waste of my time. So I would rather revert to doing it myself, which is another problem because you want to delegate. You want to start that engaging, influential engagement with people soon already. So you don't just have to hand over tasks to other people, but you do want to start giving tasks to other people and not fix their mistakes, but you want to have that engagement, that two-way street where both of you are involved. And then how often do you take the time to actively listen during team discussions? Oh, this is very important. How many of you sit back, let other people take the lead and not really listen because you're not going to really give your opinion? How involved are you? And even if you do listen very actively, it doesn't mean you need to put something on the table, but it could be a good thing to start practicing, putting your thoughts on the table. And I also don't want you to just talk for the sake of talking. It may also be a good thing to talk with a strategic focus in mind. Really say something that's important, that will contribute, not something that is just talking for the sake of talking. A lot of people, I think they think that they're engaging leaders. They just talk a lot. Talking can be strategized and it can be effective. Let's look at the third section, teamwork. How would you rate your ability to collaborate with others in a team? This is a very important point because a lot of people that we assess are just obstructive in a team. And usually that obstructiveness can be linked back to being self-absorbed. to being selfish, thinking about myself. The other problem with selfishness is a lot of people that are selfish don't know that they are. So this is bad news for everyone out there today. You have to explore yourself and see whether you are a selfish person or not. It's a very hard and a tough question to ask. But selfishness is a little bit of a pandemic that we've got at the moment, worldwide, everywhere. So just ask yourself that question. Where do you fall on the scale of selfishness? How much do you listen to other people? How much do you care about their needs and their input? And if you are unsure, ask yourself this question all of the time. So let's just go back to the competency question. It says here, how would you rate your ability to collaborate with others in a team? The options are excellent, good, average, or needs improvement. And if it needs improvement, collaboration means to engage with others, ask them what do they need from you, and communicating what you need from them. And there's a way also that you can communicate with others. There's a way that you can choose your words to get that engagement. And engage with others, talk to them. You don't have to think up everything yourself. You can get that information from other people. And then the second question, when working in a group, are you more likely to take charge, support others, follow the group's lead, or stay silent? So here we can also talk about your ability to speak up, because outspokenness is also something that one can develop. Maybe you're just more quiet. You can be a quiet, reserved person, but you can learn to speak up at important times. This is something you can practice. Once again, if you're introverted, you do not have to become extroverted. Choose your words and your sentences that you want to practice to put on the table. And are you someone who would let others take the lead? Are you just used to sitting back and let others talk? Test yourself here a little bit. And what you can do is to practice a little bit. Practice putting some thoughts on the table. And then problem solving, that's question 4. I just want to see if I can, I can go up and down. Yes, let's look at problem solving. When faced with a challenge, do you take initiative to solve it? Wait for others to act? Do you get frustrated or try to avoid it? So when you are faced with a challenge, when you get frustrated or try to avoid it, it could mean that you could feel some anxiety around your capability to solve it. Becoming frustrated also, you may feel that you don't have the capacity to solve it or to try it. And or sometimes if you wait for others to act, it could be that you are just not so confident yet. Here you can test your own independence, and don't be scared or feel despondent if you think, oh, I'm actually one of those who step back and let others take the lead. That's fine. The first part is to acknowledge what is it that you do, where do you fall on that scale, and then little bits by little bits, you want to try and make a contribution. You want to put your thought on the table. Remember, even if your thought or your contribution gets rejected, that is 100% fine, because you already put it on the table. That's the most important thing. Let's look at the last question here. The last one is about responsibility and ethics. How comfortable are you with owning your own mistakes and failures? This is very important because remember, all of us have an ego. It doesn't matter how old or young you are. The ego is a tiny, tiny part of you that makes a huge difference, because that's the one who makes excuses for themselves, doesn't want to acknowledge that I did something or did not do something. I don't want to acknowledge that I can be selfish sometimes. I don't want to acknowledge that I don't listen effectively sometimes. When you are in an interpersonal relationship and you have a fight with someone, do you have the ability to actually keep your mouth shut and listen to the other person? Can you actually hear the words that they are speaking? This is a very good training example or training opportunity for you. So how comfortable are you with owning your mistakes and failures? So your scoring would be, I'm very comfortable, somewhat comfortable, not comfortable. I would say I'm sort of medium. I think it would depend on the mistake or the failure. If it's disastrous, I'll probably dodge it. But I have taken some time to think about scenarios that's happened, and I have been able to objectively look at it and say, I could have done more or I could have done less, whatever. Take some time to think about your things. And then the last one, do you feel you can influence the outcome of a project or a decision? This is incredibly important. Some of us just believe we don't have an impact. You will never be an entrepreneur or do something creative or become a very good executive leader if you do not believe that you can make an impact. And the second thing around that impact is, are you okay with the fact that your impact can be rejected? And can you persevere in the face of anything that comes your way? That makes you a good leader, and that makes you a responsible person that can say, okay, that didn't work, so I'm going to try a different way. So I'm going to keep these questions on here. If you just want to go through this again, that way up there you will see the self-awareness, the communication, the teamwork, the problem solving, and responsibility ethics. I just want to see if I can I want to just see if I can see any questions. So if anyone has put any questions up, I just want to open the chat box. I hope you can still see the document that is shared. So anyone who's got any questions for us, please put it in the chat box. No. I want to close that. All right. So is there anyone who wants to share a question or an idea or a frustration that they have, or anything else that was not discussed in this group that you would like to talk about? All right, so I don't see anything yet, and I know that some of you have got questions, so you are welcome to put them in the chat box. I just want to reset. My chat box. Okay, so anyone who had any questions on this type of training, you have the opportunity to put it in the chat box right now. And also remember that the recording will be shared by HR Talk. So just give them a while to prepare the recording. So if any one of you wants to get the recording on the training, you can speak to them. And we can also customize training for you. This training is also available on the HR Talk training portal, and you can just go join it and participate if you like. But we can also customize online training for you if you need something that's a little bit more specific. All right, so for now, I can't see any questions in the chat box. I think I'm going to stop the sharing page. Let me just show my face again. There we go. All right. Okay. So everyone is very, very quiet. I hope I didn't give you too much information now. But please share if there's anything. Let me just see here. Okay. So there's someone said frustration. It's not easy when you're dealing with sticky floors and glass ceilings. Sometimes you don't get promoted just because you're good at what you do and they want to keep at that same level. This is where the very open and clear communication is very, very necessary. And if you think that this is what they are doing to you because they want to keep you there where you are very effective, you need to have that conversation with them. I'm not promising that they will necessarily listen to you, but I think if you take an idea to them or a suggestion or a proposal, that's the word that I'm looking for, a proposal in terms of what it is that you can add on that level. Your existing operational expertise together with what you can do on a higher level. Once again, if you are not being considered and not listened to, It does sometimes open the door to maybe consider other options, but you also want to get feedback on why they are keeping you there. But you want to keep that conversation very open, and you want to communicate your frustration and your needs. And what is their succession planning for you? But don't walk with that information with yourself and not sharing it with other people, because this is a frustrating part. Also, do not wait for other people to train you and make you ready for that new chapter in your life and in your career. Always take initiative, be proactive, look at your options. You need to manage yourself as an entity that is gaining more skills and wants to get more exposure. But you are right, this could probably be one of the frustrations that you can feel. And then sometimes you are not promoted because you are very vocal and you are considered confrontational. How can you train yourself on this? So maybe it's a good thing to get feedback in terms of how are people experiencing you, because it could go any direction. You could be vocal and outspoken, persuasive, which could be a very strong attribute. It depends on maybe what you are vocal about, what specific things, and how your ability to influence other people, and how you get, so the topic would be very important, because if people are considering you as confrontational, get more information around this. What does that mean? And is it other people that just needs to get used to the way that you interact, or can you polish the sharp edges? Because there's always something that you must also remember, you don't want to get rid of your own style, your confidence, your ability to speak confidently. But we can choose the words, we can soften the sharp edges. So learn more about that. What does that mean? Who is saying that? Also, is it just one person saying that? Or have you gotten the hint from a few people? And also, did you get the hint from a professional area and personal, or just the one area? So you do want to investigate. You want to ask questions and be curious. Don't be scared, and don't be defensive, because you could be at an age in your life as well. I would like to know how old you are. See, I don't know if I can ask that in the group, but it would be good to know how old you are. Because if you're younger, you could have a few blind spots. If you're older, one can probably say you're a dog that can't learn new tricks. It's, there's a lot of ways that you can look at it and interpret it. But you do want to gain information. You want to know what does that mean? What does that mean for me? And how can I improve it? And don't ignore it, but also don't get rid of your talents. All right, that's a good one. Anyone else who got questions for me? These are the type of things we want to look at, because you do want to look at your EQ, your softer skills, your influential skills. What would be good for you is to look at an example of, sorry, I'm way over time now, so I will wrap it up. But you want to look at an example of a very good, strong, mature, influential leader that you absolutely admire, someone that's not sensitive, ego-sensitive, humble, resilient, strong, but patient. What type of person is that? And how can you follow some of that as an example? Not changing yourself, but how can you mimic some of it that's working for other people? All right, there's another question. How do you establish your role amongst others to not overstep boundaries or try handle work that isn't theirs? So basically reiterating the chain of process within the company. So how do you establish your role amongst others to not overstep boundaries or try handle work that isn't there? Or basically reiterating the chain of process. Oh, okay, I see what you mean. Communicate. Just communicate your boundary. Communicate what it is that you need from others. What do they need from you? So communicating in a very emotionally mature manner, And communication is always going to be a very big thing. You don't want to talk too much or your emails be too long, but your email needs to answer a lot of questions in terms of what does who need when from who. So be very full in your description and communicate, and refer back to the processes. And but if you can come across as helpful and supportive and not judgmental or confrontational. So, but communication is going to be your answer there. And then how do you deal with disrespectful subordinates? We were colleagues and I got promoted to their manager. They resist and fight against everything I say, even if it's for the benefit. So that's probably likely to happen. Good learning school opportunity for you. It's not pleasant, but people will move on. Give them some time. Maybe feel that you have given them a lot of time, but what you also want to do is, because you can pick up on that now, but don't make that the main part of your focus. Go back to why are you there? What are you supposed to do? And focus on the goals, focus on the strategic goals, focus on your short-term, medium and longer-term goals. Who will help you to get there? And communicate with people and choose your words, even if you pick up an attitude or pick up resistance. If you go back to what it is that we are supposed to do, how are we supposed to get there? What do they need from you? How can I help you? How can I support you? Just push through it. Because like many things in life, just like COVID, it came and it went again. People are not even thinking about it anymore. But try to communicate, try to show that you're there to help, but also don't be sorry for being where you are. Be helpful, be supportive, listen, communicate, but do not be sorry or show sorry that you are there. Choose your words in your emails correctly. Be firm and assertive, but kind. Do not show that you are sorry or that you can pick up what you objectively and continue with your responsibilities, because you can communicate. This is expected of us as a team. This is the timelines that we have. I trust you to help me. Together we can get there. And it's not easy. It will not be easy, but you want to practice that and it will blow over. It will get better with time. Right. Any other questions? These are good questions because this is the typical thing that the young leaders struggle with. But it's a very good learning curve for you in your career, in this time in your career. Very, very good learning curve. So this is going to test your resilience and how persevering you are to push through this unpleasantness, because this is not what you're going to get. The more senior you're going to get, the more unpleasantness you're going to get, the more unpopular you are going to get with unpopular decisions. That's part of the job, but believe me, it will also blow over. It will blow over, like COVID. Okay, any other questions? And please keep an eye out for the next round of webinars that we're going to have. We're going to look at stress, how stress flows into EQ, how can I develop my own competency-based questionnaires. But the three things will be speaking to each other. I think all of you that's here today need to join us. It's going to be 3 webinars, I think in September or something. Please join us because this will help you to deal with your stress, make your EQ better. How can you do your own competency-based interviews when you deal with people or interview them? All right. So thank you so much. You were all fantastic.